Welcome. We're going to talk about inverse functions here, Calculus BC. What is an inverse function? Let's talk about the derivatives of this. And you might see this in a textbook. When I see this kind of stuff, man, I don't know what's going on. This looks super weird to me. Like, that's hard for me to read. But the derivative of an inverse function, the idea is like, you kind of flip the x and y values. So like, if y equals x squared, I don't remember. Do you guys know how to find the inverse function of something? Have you ever done that? Oh, ooh. Did I restart the video? No. Didn't ooh at the start. Sorry. Too late. So the way I've always found inverse function, let's say the equation was y equals x squared plus 1. The way I would find the inverse is you want to make it solve for x instead. You subtract 1 on both sides. And then you square root both sides. So you get x equals square root of y minus 1. And then you would flip like the x and y. So the inverse function's y equals square root of x minus 1. That kind of sound familiar? Something like that? I don't know. There's ways you do this. And then inverse functions mirror on this axis y equals x, if that matters to you. The derivative of an inverse is this formula, or if f and g are inverse functions, you can write this. That kind of trips me out. So it looks like it's like, oh, flip the fraction, like do a reciprocal of the derivative. But it's not just, oh, find the derivative of g of x and just do the reciprocal. It doesn't quite work out that way. And it gets confusing to me. So I don't like doing it this way. And this is what I learned at training, this way. And this is how I do inverses. We make a table here. So watch this. We have this table, and where f and g are inverse functions. And I'm going to set up a table like this. So f and g are inverses each other, and they might say, if f of 5, f of x and g of x are inverse functions, and f of x equals x squared plus 1. Find g prime of 3. They'll do stuff where g is the inverse of f. So what I like doing is I like making this table up. One thing to know with this table is the x value for g is the y value for f. And conversely, x value for f is the y value for g. The idea is I start filling out this table. And then usually like the flow chart is like you start down here with some information, and then you fill in information up here. And then when you know the x value here, you can derive the f to get a derivative. And then the reciprocal of the derivative, the goal is to get this down here. When you say much of this lesson, you mean or inverse, or do you mean implicit differentiation? Okay, good. So I'm going to try to explain it with this table, because I really don't understand a lot of it too. But I understand this table, and I want to demonstrate how this works. Like deriving it this way, just like, you know what I hate about this? The -1 thing and then the prime thing, you getting those mixed up. And like, we just have too many marks up here, and it just starts looking gross to me. And I just know I'm going to flip it wrong. So here's how it goes. So here's my demonstration of this. So g and h are inverse functions of each other. So this is straight from Khan Academy. The following table lists the values of g, h, and h prime. Okay, so they give you a table like this. Find g prime of 0. All right. So if you know, whenever you get inverse functions, so I'm going to make my table. So I'm going to make it. So I'm going to make a table. This is my first thing I do every time. Boom, boom, boom. Close enough. All right. Nope. So your table, your original will be, if I'm trying to find g prime of 0, my g would be down here. My h would be here. And so and then this is going to be my x, my y, and my y prime or dy dx. y dx. The goal is eventually to get to this spot. Now, if I'm told I'm trying to find g prime of 0, that means the x value for g is 0. So, boom. Now, when you know that that x value is 0 for g, that means the y value for h is also 0. I want to get to this derivative, so I need the x value for h. Well, I got to look at this table. And if you got to be careful. So it's when the y value for h is 0. And that would be right here. What is the x? This is -2. That means. Okay. So when x is -2, right here, this would be like h prime of -2. Where is that? Boom, boom. Go, boom, right here. It'll be -1. What is the inverse of -1? Also -1. That is a terrible example because those are the same answer. But that's the idea for this. Is I would set up this table because I like to set up what my x's and y's should be. To me, this organizes it way better. And then I can kind of go from there. So I'm actually going to do that same problem just again. Walk through it all. And then we're going to do this a few times. And I should make you guys do one. That'd be a real teacher. So again, I make my table. X, Y. We're going to call it y prime this time. And we know we're doing this because we're doing with inverse functions. And I say a g prime. Whenever I have inverse functions, that word is anywhere, I know I'm doing this table thing. If I'm solving for g prime, I'm put the g on the bottom and the h up here. And ultimately, I want to solve for this. So what is my given information here? That's given as 0. I know this is 0. This is also has to be. Match up in a line here. I know if that's 0, and this is where I have to like go other information. And you got to watch this carefully. The y value is 0 for h. My h means this column means like the y value. So I'm going to go to this 0, which corresponds to the -2. Now, my y derivative of h at -2 would then go to this value right here. I want to do the reciprocal of -1, which happens in this case to also be -1. -1 over 1, you flip it, 1 over -1, which is the same thing. Okay. Weird, I know. Let's try this again with something else. So this is another way of presenting that information. How else do I do this? Really? That's all come on, bro. Examples. All right, I'm going to dig something else from Khan Academy up too. So let's say I give you pauses. All right, so here's another example, straight from Khan Academy. So no table this time. This h is this function. Let f be the inverse function of h, so keyword here. And then some information. I want to find f prime of 10. All right, so if I ever get all the information, first thing I do is I go, oh, it's going to be one of those table problems again. So here I go. I'm going to make my table. I'll have you guys do one. Close enough. Is it perfect? So, okay, x, y, y prime. And then if I'm solving for f, I'll put that down here in h. How do I know I'm putting it down? This is the one I want to solve for. So I'm going to put it on the bottom. So it doesn't matter like That's the only reason I put it there. So what do I know? Oh, that's a 10. 10. And you know what that means? This guy's a 10. These are supposed to match up. All right, I want to find this thing. How do I find the x value of h when the h of x is 10? I don't have a table, but I have the function. So this is where I get to plug it in. I'm going to say 10 equals 7 minus x minus 2x to the 5th. Oh, and then I would try to solve for this. But, okay, maybe some of you will see my problem. You're like, wait, so I'm starting to do this right now. I'm going, wait a minute. No, it's probably like this. And I'm like, how do I solve for x? And then I realize, stupid. They gave me this. Oops. Okay. Sometimes you actually need to plug it in and solve, but no, not in this case. All right. So the next thing I would look at is I want to find my y prime. Okay, so that means I actually need to find my h prime of x, which I can do. It's going to be -1, 0, -1, and -10 x to the 4th. H prime of -1 would be -1 minus 10, -1 to the 4th. -1 to the 4th is just +1, so it's -1 minus 10 is -11. What's the reciprocal of -11? Remember, like -11 over 1. The reciprocal would be -1 over 11. I will do that problem again, but I'm going to plug it into Salcon. So, sorry, it's everywhere. -1 divided by 11. Yes. So to walk through that one more time. Uh-oh, it says inverse. Make my table. F down here, H here. The x value of the inverse is 10. That makes y value of the other function also 10. To get the y prime, I need to know the x because I need to know what to plug in. I can't just get it with just the y. And then I'm like, oh, hey, I'm given that information. Technically, that means this is -1 here too, but guess what? It doesn't matter. But if you want to fill it in, great. That's -1. To find my y prime, I need to find my h prime of x first. -1, deriving this, minus 10x to the 4th. Plugging in that -1 for x, be -1 minus 10, -11. You have to do the reciprocal down here. You flip the fraction. This is my cleanest way of doing this. You guys ready to try one? Yes. I want you to try. I'll do the next. Okay. There, you guys do this one. Go. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to go over answers to this now. Okay, so h of 3 is going to be a 3 there. And that means this one's 3. And then I got to find the x value for g. So I'm dealing with g. See, this is where people go, oh, x value 3, and then they put a 5 here or something. That's why you got to be careful. No, it's this one. And that means you put a 4 for x. And then that means g prime of this is 1/2. Therefore, this is 2. Okay, So I got to the 4 right here because the G of 3 is the Y value is 3. And then that means the X value is 4. Oh, so to find G prime of X, I guess I should have explained that better. G prime of X is this table right here. Why is it? Oh, what's going on? Oh, wait. Okay. G prime of X is this one right here. And when X is 4, prime of X would be 1/2. Flip it, you get 2. I'm going to put the wrong answer in first because I don't want to pass the test. Try one more. Okay, I want you to try this one. Go ahead. Pause the video at home. All right, let's look at the answers to this one, folks. Not the same one we did. Oh, I should have made my table first. Well, hopefully those at home could make it without me. Time to grow up. But if you didn't, that's okay. X, Y, Y prime. And then what we're doing, we're going to put the F here and the H here. So F prime of 7, I put a 7 here. That means you put a 7 here. And then I got to find, okay, when that's 7, this is -1. Because of this. -1, 2, doesn't matter. I'll just put it in. This things should be the same. And then the prime, so I have to find H prime of X. It would be -1 minus 3x squared. Is this going to be -1? H prime of -1 is -1 minus 3 times -1 squared. -1 minus 3 is -4. Good. The inverse of -4 would be -1/4. See if I'm correct. So there you go, folks. Kind of how you do those. Such a random derivative. Like, doesn't build on anything. I wish they wouldn't even do derivatives of inverse functions. And so I'm going to, if we go back to, like this one. How do I even explain it this way? If you want to find G prime of X, I forgot the way you explained it. You found the derivative of the original. I mean, basically, it's finding the derivative of the original, like the y value, the x value here would be the y value for, and then you inversed it. So it's the same thing, but for me, it's hard to organize that. And that's why I like the table. But however you want to do it.